It's arguable what the exact mechanics of the return by death authority are. We still don't know whether Subaru goes back in time to retry the same timeline, whether he shifts to a different one, or if the world itself reverses to a previous point in time. You could think of it as the world resetting to a moment where Subaru is still alive, meaning that the authority ensures Subaru's continued presence as the world progresses. If this authority is indeed passed down from the Witch of Envy, it implies that her jealousy is so strong it won't allow the world to move on without Subaru. In this video, however, we'll construct the tree as a timeline, with each failed attempt creating a new timeline. But before we begin, let's familiarize ourselves with the locations where the story unfolds. This is the kingdom of Lugnica, where the entire story takes place. Within the kingdom, there are several key locations, such as the capital, where Subaru is first transported, Arlen Village, which is under the jurisdiction of the Mathers family, and the auxiliary mansion of the Mathers family. There's also the sanctuary, also called the Witch's Graveyard. For an unknown reason, and through an unknown process, Subaru, living in his original world, is transported to a new one. He arrives in a world with 4 kingdoms: Lugnica, Karaki, Wallachia, and Gustico. Subaru finds himself in the capital of the kingdom of Lugnica. While exploring the town to gather information about this new world, he meets a merchant selling a pass. He continues exploring until he encounters 3 thieves. While the thieves are trying to steal from him, a silver-haired girl appears, accompanied by a puck, a spirit, and she saves Subaru. It turns out that an important insignia was stolen from her, and, as a way to thank her, Subaru decides to help her look for it. The silver-haired girl introduces herself to Subaru as Satala. They ask around town and determine that the thief is likely a girl named Felt, who lives in the slum. They arrive at a tavern run by a man named Rome, and Subaru goes inside to ask for Felt, but finds Rome dead. Suddenly, an assassin known as the Bowel Hunter attacks. Emilia, who had entered the tavern to look for Subaru, is also struck down, and both she and Subaru die. As Subaru lies dying and realizes it's the end, he promises to save the girl lying beside him. Subaru restarts the loop and wakes up in front of the ring-a-bender. Confused about what happened, he immediately heads to the alley where he previously met Emilia and encounters the same 3 thieves. This time, he decides to fight them and manages to defeat them. He then heads straight to Rom's tavern. There, he successfully meets with Rom and Felt and begins negotiating for the insignia, offering his phone in exchange. During their negotiation, Elsa, also known as the Bowel Hunter, enters the tavern and joins in the bargaining. However, Felt and Rom ultimately decide to sell the insignia to Subaru, which provokes Elsa. She then attacks, killing them all once again. Subaru once again wakes up in front of the ring-a-bender. This time, he decides to take it easy, but as he watches the street, he notices the silver-haired girl passing by. He calls out to her using the name Satla, which immediately distracts her. Shocked, she asks why he would use the name of the Witch of Envy. This distraction allows Felt to steal her insignia, and she blames Subaru, accusing him of working with Felt. The girl begins chasing after Felt, and Subaru follows. Along the way, he encounters the 3 thieves again. Attempting to brush them off, Subaru's plan backfires, and in the ensuing scuffle, the thieves accidentally kill him. Subaru once again wakes up in front of the vendor. He begins to refer to his ability to return each time he dies as returned by death, deciding not to get involved with the silver-haired girl, who hasn't even told him her real name. Subaru tries to move on. However, something inside him doesn't feel right, so he heads back to the ring-a-vendor. He asks the vendor about any recent pickpocketing incidents, and the vendor confirms there have been some. Subaru follows Felt's trail, and eventually encounters the 3 thieves again. Subaru calls for help, and Reinhard arrives, causing the thieves to flee. Subaru then goes to Felt's place to retrieve the stolen insignia, claiming it's worth 20 coins. She doubts him, so they go to Rom's tavern, where Rom confirms the value of Subaru's phone as 20 coins. During their negotiation, Emilia arrives, searching for the insignia, followed by Elsa, who intends to kill everyone. Amid the chaos, Subaru urges Felt to escape and calls for help. Reinhard arrives just in time to fend off Elsa, who ultimately escapes. Afterward, Emilia brings Subaru to Roswaal's mansion. Reinhard notices the insignia reacting to Felt, revealing that she's been chosen as a candidate for the royal selection. Subaru later wakes up in Roswaal's mansion, where he soon encounters Beatrice. She drains his mana, causing him to fall unconscious. When he wakes again, he sees the ceiling above him and is greeted by the twin maids, Rem and Ram. After familiarizing himself with the mansion, he meets Roswaal, who offers him compensation. Subaru requests to stay and work as a servant. Subaru begins working hard around the mansion, and Rem makes him some clothes. He visits Arlem village nearby to buy groceries, then returns to the mansion and visits Beatrice, who notices something unusual about him. Later, Subaru goes to sleep, only to wake up once more, staring at the ceiling, discovering from the maid's reactions that he had died. Subaru repeats the events and again asks Roswaal to work at the mansion, where he begins his duties. In this timeline, Rem makes him clothes, and Ram teaches him how to read and write. Rem remains wary of Subaru and accompanies him to Arlem village to buy groceries. Subaru, suspecting he died in his sleep during the last loot, decides to stay awake this time. As he grows more exhausted, his body begins to deteriorate. He stumbles outside, vomiting, and hears the sound of chains before being killed once more, waking up again, looking at the ceiling. In this loop, Subaru asks Roswaal to stay as a guest instead. During his time in the mansion, he completes his reading lessons and learns from Beatrice about the Witch of Envy. When the time comes for him to leave, Subaru bids farewell to the mansion's residents. However, he lingers to investigate the source of the chain attack. To his shock, he discovers that Rem was the one who killed him, noting that he smells like the witch. She kills him again, ending this loop. Subaru wakes up once again, staring at the ceiling, and this time he can't leave his room. After a while, Beatrice comes to check on him. Subaru asks her to defend him for a few days, and she agrees, forming a contract with him. Days pass, and Subaru is relieved, believing he's managed to survive this loop. However, he is soon called by Emilia, only to discover that Rem has died in his place. Rem confronts Subaru, asking if he knows something about Rem's death, but Subaru cannot answer and flees the mansion. As Subaru runs, the mansion's residents begin fighting each other. Ram follows Subaru and encounters Beatrice, leading to a confrontation on a cliff. Subaru, overwhelmed with guilt and despair, decides to jump off the cliff to reset the loop. Subaru wakes up and is greeted by the twin maids, Rem and Ram. He asks Roswaal for permission to work as a butler at the mansion, and his request is granted. While staying there, Subaru learns the basics of magic from Puck, though he exhausts himself in an attempt to make everything go smoothly. Concerned about curses, he seeks more information from Beatrice. To investigate further, Subaru visits the nearby village with Rem and Ram, touching the villagers to trace the curse's source. Upon returning to Beatrice, she reveals that the curse has been placed on Subaru's hand. He realizes that the dog he encountered in the village is the source of the curse. Beatrice removes the curse, but Subaru decides to return to the village to deal with the dog once and for all. Upon his return, Subaru learns that the village children have been kidnapped by Mabeasts. He heads into the forest with Rem to save them. During the rescue, Subaru sacrifices himself to protect Rem from the Mabeasts. Inspired by Subaru's sacrifice, Rem returns to the forest to hunt down the Mabeasts and remove the remaining curses on Subaru. Subaru and Ram follow Rem into the forest to help rescue the kidnapped children. With Roswaal's assistance, they successfully save the children and defeat the Mabeasts. Later, Subaru goes on a date with Emilia. When they return to the mansion, they find Wilhelm and Felix, who have come to invite Emilia to the royal selection in the capital. Subaru requests to accompany her. Upon arriving at the royal capital, Emilia enters the castle with Julius, while Subaru meets Priscilla and her companion. At their hotel, Subaru, Rem, and Emilia gather, and Emilia asks Subaru not to come to the castle. Subaru goes to the castle with Priscilla. The candidates for the crown are introduced, and Subaru declares himself Emilia's knight. Julius takes offense at this and challenges Subaru to a duel, which Subaru accepts but ends up losing badly. After the duel, Subaru has a confrontation with Emilia, who then returns to the mansion, leaving Subaru to be treated by Theifs in the capital. While Subaru recovers, he practices swordsmanship with Wilhelm. One day, they visit the city and encounter the ring vendor again. Later, after Subaru and Rem part ways with the Crush camp, they head back to the mansion. On the way, they stay the night at a hotel. Rem casts a spell on Subaru, making him believe it will heal his gait. But he falls asleep, and Rem returns to the mansion alone. The next day, Subaru wakes up and immediately realizes what happened. He hires a merchant named Otto to help him get to the mansion. Otto makes Subaru disembark before reaching Arlem village. Subaru then runs toward the village, encountering dead and burned bodies, eventually finding Rem's dead body. He continues to the mansion, where he discovers that all the residents have been killed before being frozen to death. Subaru wakes up in front of the Ringo vendor in this timeline, still reeling from the horrors of the previous loop, causing him to go mad. Rem decides to take Subaru and part ways with the Crush camp. On their way to Arlem village, they encounter the witch cult. Rem fights them off, but the cult manages to capture Subaru and bring him to the Sin Archbishop of Sloth, Petelgeuse, who despises Sloth more than anything. Rem eventually catches up to the cult and fights to save Subaru, but Petelgeuse uses his authority to capture her, disfiguring her body. The witch cult then leaves, leaving Subaru behind. Rem, despite her injuries, casts a spell to release Subaru from the chains before dying in his arms. Subaru, devastated, carries her body to the mansion, only to find the residents dying. The monster of the end appears and decapitates Subaru, ending the loop. Subaru begins this loop by grabbing Rem's hand and heading to the Crush camp, where he tries to persuade Crush to help defend the mansion, but she refuses, stating that Subaru has nothing to offer in return. Subaru then goes to Priscilla, who suggests he lick her feet in exchange for help. Desperate to save the mansion's residents, Subaru agrees, but Priscilla kicks him in the face for his trouble. Next, Subaru tries to persuade Anastasia, but she, focused only on money, also refuses. Undeterred, Subaru hires Otto and the merchants to head toward the mansion. Before reaching Arlem village, they encounter the white whale, and everyone is eaten alive, leaving only Subaru. Subaru then encounters the witch cult, and both the cult and Petelgeuse are killed by the beast of the end, ending the loop. Subaru wakes up once again in front of the Ringo vendor. This time, he grabs Rem's hand and suggests they run away together to escape their troubles. Rem convinces him to stay and face the challenges ahead. Subaru returns to the Crush camp and proposes a new deal. He offers information on the time and location of the white whale's appearance in exchange for their help. Anastasia, whose camp has been affected by the white whale's rampages, agrees to join the subjugation effort. With the team assembled, they engage in a fierce battle with the white whale. After a grueling fight, they successfully kill the beast. However, due to the exhaustion Rem endured during the battle, Subaru is separated from her. She is taken by Crush, while Wilhelm suggests accompanying Subaru back to the mansion. Julius, along with half of Ricardo's mercenary group and a few knights, join Subaru in the mission to save the mansion. After reaching the forest before Arlem village, Subaru heads straight to Petelgeuse's location, knowing where to find him. A couple of witch cultists offer to accompany him, but Subaru refuses and goes alone. He plans an ambush with the help of pearl buttons, Mimi and Hataro, to take down Petelgeuse. Although they manage to kill him, it's not permanent. They also have to deal with his severed fingers, which they take to Arlem village to dispose of. Unfortunately, Petelgeuse possesses Subaru's body, and Julius and Ferris are forced to kill him once again. In the new timeline, Subaru sends Wilhelm to notify Emilia and the others in the village to move to the sanctuary, where Roswaal has gone, due to the impending attack by the witch cult. Meanwhile, Beatrice decides to stay at the mansion to defend it. Subaru teams up with Julius to devise a plan to trap and defeat Petelgeuse. Together, they successfully kill him for good. Afterward, Subaru joins forces with Otto to rescue Emilia and the children from the remaining fingers of Petelgeuse. Along the way, Subaru also mends his relationship with Emilia.